All right, so in my mind, 75 is, come on, is equal to, I think, 45 plus 30. Would you agree? Isn't that how you would get 75? Remember, we're trying to use some multiple of 30, 60, 45, 90, okay? Because those are the ones that we know in our mind. So then I'm looking for the cosine. So I'm going to say that the cosine of 75 degrees is equal to the cosine, and it really doesn't matter if I do 45 plus 30 or 30 plus 45. And now we apply our sum and difference identity. We know that when we're adding our cosines, that we're going to go the cosine of the first times the cosine of the second is equal to the minus the sine of the first times the sine of the second. But this is where, if you know your identities or your special values, then you know how to figure these out. What's the cosine of 45? Square roots of 2 over 2. What's the cosine of 30? Square roots of 3 over 2 minus, what's the sine of 45? This is why you need these. What's the sine of 30? Therefore, this is square roots of what? 6 over. When you multiply fractions, how do you do them? It's not the square roots of 6 over 2. What is 1/3 times 1/2? What is square roots of 2 over 2 times square roots of 3 over 2? Square roots of 6 over 4. You guys cannot get stuck in these basic math problems. Minus square roots of 2 over, okay. Simplify it, square roots of 6 minus square roots of 2 over 4. Can I subtract the square roots of 6 minus the square roots of 2? Can I subtract A minus B? No. So if my square roots are not the same, then remember I leave this alone if I'm adding or subtracting. So what is the exact value of the cosine of 75 degrees? This is your exact angle right here. Okay, so all this is manipulating values that you know to find larger angles. All right, the next one is the cosine of 735. Well, 735 is more than one rotation, so we want to figure out what it is within 360 degrees. So take 735 minus 360. Probably I can take out 2 rotations. So what's 735 minus 360 minus 360? 15 degrees. So what I'm really looking for is the cosine of 15 degrees, because these are coterminal angles. 735 and 15 degrees ends you each time in the same spot in your first quadrant. All right? Well, the cosine of 15, using my 30, 60, and 90, and 45, how would I get 15? Okay? That's the cosine of 45 minus 30. Yeah, you have to, because those are the only ones that you have the exact values for. All right, so using our identities, the cosine of the difference in the cosine tells me to do what? Cosine of 45, cosine of plus, because remember coset and cosets like each other, they put each other together, and their signs are different from the boys. So that's sine of 45, sine of 30. All right. Because our identity tells you to do that. If I'm subtracting, I add. Because I added, so I subtract. 75 was 45 plus 30. Yes. So cosine of 45, root 2 over 2. Cosine of 30, root 3 over, plus sine of 45, root 2 over 2. Sine of 30, 1/2. Square root of 6 over 4 plus square roots of 2 over 4 is square roots of 6 plus square roots of 2 all over 4. If you don't know your formulas, or you don't know your identities, you cannot do these. If you do not know your 30, 60, 90s, and 45s, you cannot do these, which is why we've been doing a little bit of these tests. Every count, yes, every time. Okay. All right, let's try another one. So find the value of the sine of x plus y given which quadrant am I in? First quadrant, so this is going to tell me my signs, okay, as in positive or negativeness. The sine of x is 45, the sine of y is 5/13. So what's your domain? First quadrant, okay? So I want to know what's the sine x cosine x plus sine y cosine y. So this is the identity that we would use, correct? Knowing these two values, what values am I missing? My cosine values of x and y, correct? So I said, you know, what identity do we have to give us a relationship? Well, we've got the sine squared plus the cosine squared equals 1. But remember, I also showed you another way. If we're in quadrant 1, and I know that the sine of my angle is 4/5, I can just plot a right triangle, can't I? And figure out what that missing length is using the Pythagorean theorem. Are you with me? And so if this is for the sine of x, then this value that's missing is going to be 25 minus 16, which is 9, is that right? Which is 3, because we have to take the square root. So that means the cosine of x for this quadrant is 3/5. Would you agree? And then if I'm doing the sine of y, also we said in the first quadrant, we know that the sine of y is 5/13. So 169 minus 25 gives me 144. So this value is 12. Are you following my thought process on this? Okay. So that means that the cosine of y is 12/13. Now that we have our missing information, we can apply our identity, correct? I want to know what sine of x plus y is, knowing that these values were given. Okay? So we're going to apply this. That means we've got the sine of x, cosine of y, plus sine of y, cosine of x. Well, the sine of x is what? It was given to be 4/5. We figured out the cosine of y is 12/13. Careful. We're switching angles. Got to switch angles, girls, okay? We don't use the same angle on the same side, okay, in either type of identity. Sine of y is 5/13. Cosine of x. Therefore, as I'm adding these, I'm going to get 48 over 65 plus 15 over 65, right? Which is 63 over 65. When sine of x was 4/5 and sine of y was 5/13. 45 minus 30 is sine of x minus y. 45 minus 30. This is sine of x plus y. I don't understand your question. The first part is this right here. I'm just applying this part right here. Okay. All right, we'll go back, and if we have time, do this example. I want to make sure that I hit at least example for each one. All right, use the sum or difference identity for the tangent to find the exact value of the tangent of 285. That's what I meant. Yeah, I have 255. That's what I wanted to change it. Oh, really? Then let's go back to the, okay, never mind. Let's go back to the other page. It doesn't matter. Sure, we'll do the 285. There's no room. Oh, sorry. Okay, so we need the tangent of 285. That means we got to split this up or subtract. Well, do I know what 105 is? No. So we have to find, combinations. If I subtract 30, I get 255. Do we know, is 255 a 45-degree angle? No. You got to work with 45, 60, 30. Well, what happens if I subtract 45? I get 200 and 240. Is 240 a 30, 60, or a 90? Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. So maybe what you should do is you should have a page. 30, 60, 90, 120, 150, 180. Just kind of do a little chart. Okay? So what's my tangent identity tell me to do? But how do I do it? If I'm adding, what's my tangent say? It's going to be the tangent of 240 plus tangent of 45. Same sign, and then 1 minus tangent of 240 times tangent of, okay, so 240. 240 is in the third quadrant. All students take. Tangent is positive, correct? And it's the same as what kind of a value? 60. What's the tangent of a 60? Okay. Plus 1 over 1 minus square roots of 3 times 1. Yep. So square roots of 3 plus 1 over 1 minus root 3. I cannot leave it in that format.
Multiply by 1 plus square root of 3.
All right, just stay in here for a second. So that's root 3 plus 3 plus 1 plus root 3. I am foiling. That's 1 conjugates minus root 3 plus root 3 minus 3. So how many root 3's do I have? 2 root 3 plus 4 over 1 minus 3, which is negative 2. Can I reduce? Can 2 go into every term? Negative root 3 minus 2. Is the same thing as what tangent of 285 was. Huh? Yeah. I mean, if 255 is, but do we know what 255 is? See, 255 is not a 30, 60, 90, or 45. Or 30 or 45. Yep. I'm going to change the homework because we didn't get to the identity one. So I'm going to change it and email you, okay, what the homework should be. Quiz, yep. See ya. Okay. Are you going to stay and ask me questions?
I actually figured it out.
Okay. Sounds good. Do you have money for me? Yay! I can go buy some more stuff.
I